Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered what life was like at the very beginning? I mean, before all the complications, before history as we know it even started. Today, we're going on a journey back in time, all the way to the dawn of humanity, to explore what theologians call the Edenic dispensation. This is the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, a period of pure innocence and direct communion with God. It's a foundational story that shapes our understanding of purpose, responsibility, and the nature of our relationship with our Creator. So, grab your Bible, get comfortable, and let's step into the garden together. The story begins in the book of Genesis. After creating the heavens and the earth, God forms the first man, Adam, from the dust of the ground and breathes into him the breath of life. This isn't just a physical creation, it's an intimate act. God then places Adam in a perfect environment, the Garden of Eden. The name Eden itself means delight or pleasure, and it was exactly that. A paradise filled with every beautiful tree and everything good for food. There was no struggle, no disease, no death. It was a place of perfect provision and beauty, designed by God for humanity to flourish in. In the middle of this garden, God placed two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. These trees weren't just botanical specimens, they were central to the story of this first dispensation. Now, what is a dispensation? Think of it as a specific period of time in which God relates to humanity under a particular set of rules or responsibilities. It's like a chapter in God's grand story of redemption. The Edenic dispensation is the very first chapter. In this period, humanity's test revolved around obedience. God gave Adam a specific job and one clear rule. His responsibility was to tend to and keep the garden. This shows us that from the very beginning, humanity was created with a purpose. To work in partnership with God, to cultivate and care for His creation. This wasn't toil as we know it today. It was joyful, fulfilling work in a perfect world. It was a role of stewardship, managing the beautiful world God had made. Alongside this responsibility came one single prohibition, a simple test of loyalty and trust. God told Adam, "You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." Let's break this down. Notice the generosity first. You may surely eat of every tree. God's provision was abundant. The restriction was minimal, just one tree out of countless options. This wasn't an arbitrary rule, it was a test of trust. Would Adam and Eve trust that God's way was best? Would they live in dependence on His wisdom, or would they seek to define good and evil for themselves? The consequence was also crystal clear: death. This wasn't just physical death, but spiritual death, separation from God, the source of all life. For a time, everything was perfect. Adam walked with God in the cool of the day. The relationship was direct, intimate, and unbroken. Then God declared, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." And so, God created Eve from Adam's side. This completes the picture of humanity, male and female, created in God's image, designed for relationship with each other and with God. They were naked and not ashamed. A beautiful picture of total innocence, transparency, and vulnerability. There was no guilt, no fear, no shame. This was the state of humanity in the Edenic dispensation. Innocent, with a clear purpose, abundant provision, and an intimate relationship with their Creator, all hinging on one simple act of obedience. So, what went wrong? The story takes a dramatic turn with the arrival of a new character, the serpent. Described as more crafty than any other beast, the serpent approaches Eve and begins to sow seeds of doubt. Notice his strategy. He doesn't start with a direct denial of God's command. He starts with a question. Did God actually say, "You shall not eat of any tree in the garden"? It's a subtle twist, making God sound restrictive and stingy. Eve corrects him, but she also slightly alters God's command, adding, "Neither shall you touch it." This small addition shows the command was already becoming a bit distorted in her mind. The serpent then moves to a direct contradiction. "You will not surely die." He attacks God's character, suggesting God is a liar who is withholding something good from them. He claims that if they eat the fruit, their eyes will be opened, and they will be like God, knowing good and evil. This temptation was powerful because it appealed to three core human desires. First, the lust of the flesh. The fruit was good for food. Second, the lust of the eyes. It was a delight to the eyes. And third, the pride of life, the desire to be wise, to be like God. Eve, deceived by the serpent's lies, took the fruit and ate. Then she gave some to her husband, Adam, who was with her, and he ate. This is a critical moment. Adam was not deceived in the same way Eve was. The Bible tells us he made a conscious choice to disobey. He chose his wife over his God. In that moment of disobedience, the Edenic dispensation came to a crashing end. The test of obedience had been failed. The consequences were immediate and catastrophic. The first thing that happened was their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked. The innocence was gone, replaced by shame, guilt, and fear. They tried to cover themselves with fig leaves, a futile human attempt to deal with their newfound sin. When they heard the sound of God walking in the garden, they hid. The intimate, open relationship they once enjoyed was shattered. They were now afraid of the very presence that was once their greatest delight. This separation from God is the essence of spiritual death, which happened the very instant they disobeyed. God confronts them, and we see another tragic human response, blame shifting. Adam blames Eve, saying, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate." He even subtly blames God, "The woman you gave me." Eve, in turn, blames the serpent. No one takes personal responsibility. This breakdown of relationships between humanity and God, and between man and woman, is a direct result of their sin. Then, God pronounces the curses that will now define life outside of Eden. The serpent is cursed. The woman will have increased pain in childbirth, and her relationship with her husband will be marked by conflict. The man will find his work to be toil. The ground is cursed, and he will struggle to bring forth food from it. And finally, the sentence of physical death is confirmed. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. But even in this dark moment of judgment, there is a glimmer of hope. In God's curse on the serpent, he gives the first prophecy of the gospel, what theologians call the proto-evangelium. He says, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." This points forward to a future descendant of Eve, Jesus Christ, who would one day crush the head of the serpent, Satan, defeating sin and death, even though he himself would be bruised in the process at the cross. This is the first promise of a coming Redeemer. Finally, God demonstrates both judgment and mercy. He makes them garments of skin to cover them. An animal had to die to cover their shame, a powerful foreshadowing of the sacrificial system and ultimately of Christ, the Lamb of God, who would be sacrificed to cover our sin. Then, to prevent them from eating from the tree of life in their fallen state and living forever in separation from him, God expelled them from the Garden of Eden. He placed cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. The age of innocence was over. Humanity was now outside of paradise, living in a fallen world, subject to sin and death, but carrying with them a promise of future redemption. So, the Edenic dispensation, though short, sets the stage for the entire biblical narrative. It establishes God's original design for humanity, the nature of sin as disobedience and distrust, and the devastating consequences that follow. But it also introduces the theme of God's redemptive plan, a promise that even in the face of our greatest failure, God had a plan to make things right. Understanding this first dispensation helps us appreciate the rest of the story so much more. It shows us what was lost and what, through Christ, we can ultimately regain, and so much more. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Garden of Eden. It's a story we all know, but there is so much depth to it when we look at it as the first chapter in God's grand plan. What are your thoughts on the Edenic dispensation? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into biblical theology. Until next time, stay curious.